Hello, this is Ernesto, and today I'm going to talk about learning of a second language. Learning of a second language involves all the aspects related to the learning process. This is divided in 5 main areas. 3 of them are independent, 2 of them are dependent. The independent ones are related first to the teacher, all the things related to the teaching process, such as the methodology, the elements involved, the teacher's attitude, etc. The second one is related directly to the learner. Here we have affective, cognitive, psychological aspects, such as the attitude, the brain functions, and also the age and the different learning styles. Also, the context is important when we talk about the learning process, because this is where the learning takes place. So this sometimes determines the exposure the student has to the language. In the 2 dependent ones, we have learning and outcome. First of all, learning is perhaps the most difficult to explain of all these areas, because it involves different levels of understanding, and also learning is influenced by all the 3 first areas that we have already talked. And also the learning is a cycle that goes from easy to difficult, and finally the outcome reflects how the student can perform the language. It's like the final result of all the learning process. Also, learning, as I was saying, is a cycle that goes from easy to difficult, but it's necessary and really important for the learning process. Here, input has a very important role, because input is everything what the student is exposed to or has access to. This can be assimilated at different stages, and students use it even without being aware of being assimilated this. Also, there are different theories that study the importance of input in second language, such as, behaviorists. For them, the language is learned by habit or acquired by habit, and it has to be dosified to the student in the right, let's say, amount if we want this to happen. The nativists, especially Chomsky, disagree with that. For them, the learning, there's no relationship between the input and output, because, the learning process is being done through the lab, playing an important role of interaction with the environment. Finally, the interactionists try to put these 2 previous views together, and for them, the learning process is nothing but the combination of both. It relates the brain function, the mental process, and also the relationship the student has to the environment. Also, input and interaction. In the classroom, the input and interaction play an important role, because it follows something that is named the initiate response feedback. This seems to be helpful, however, it restricts interaction and meaning. So, according to this, students should be allowed to interact, because this will be more beneficial for them, instead of even lowering down the level of the activities. In the conditions to assure an optimal language environment in the classroom, we can have that students should be aware of different commands. They should be encouraged by teachers. Also, they should be allowed to express themselves and interact. Also, they should be asked and required to use L2 by necessity. Also, they should be aware of different utterances, such as asking for permission, etc. And formal instruction. Here we talk about classroom and second language acquisition. Formal instruction plays an important role. According to the literature, it is helpful for knowledge, however, not for meaning, because it can affect development. There are 3 positions that try to explain classroom second language acquisition. They are the non-interface, interface, and the variability views. For the non-interface, people learn by acquisition, so formal process is not required, because it affects the nature function of second language acquisition. For the interface view, learned language can become acquired through further practice. That means the more practice you have, the more possibilities you have to acquire the language. And finally, for the variability vision, language acquisition and use are related and come from the different language tasks. So, again, in the classroom, a lot of practice should be promoted if we want students to have mastery of the language. Now, if this second language acquisition results right, we can talk about that the person becomes bilingual or even multilingual. But let's talk about bilingualism and multilingualism as well. What is this? A bilingual person is a person who can speak another language besides his mother tongue. This can happen in different situations. For example, one of them is that the second language is spoken at home, maybe by mom and dad, and the first language as well. So the kid is encouraged to both languages inside home. Also, people can become bilingual when they move to another country where the mother tongue is not spoken. So, well, they are related outside with the exposure of the second language, and the first language exposure happens inside home. So what happens to a bilingual person? A bilingual person has like different characteristics. For example, well, the development of L1 founds mastery of L2, according to Cummins. This means that sometimes there are different errors in the second language acquisition that come from the way that people learned the first language. This is very common when people say that someone speaks a second language the way they speak the first language, without respecting some rules or word order, etc. Also, Collier and Ramirez found that more or less the time that a person needs to master or to become bilingual in another language is around 5 years. They also discovered that bilingual people perform better at school because they have the ability to analyze abstract visual aspects. Finally, as a personal reflection, I guess that there was a pack of different variables that influenced and were present on my language acquisition, second language acquisition. For example, the affective part played an important role because, well, all my teachers always kept students or kept us motivated, so that really helped me to love the language and become or be more involved in it. Also, well, the cognitive aspects played an important role in that because, well, I guess that I was young and then I had like more ability to absorb the language, the different rules. And also, well, maybe my age played an important role because, well, I was young and as I was saying, well, my brain worked differently than it does today. So I guess that also this aspect helped me out to develop the second language acquisition better. Also, well, the input and exposure we had to the language was really important, not only inside the classroom, but also outside, because, well, inside the classroom, I was given only the basic elements and I had like a few practice. However, outside the classroom, I had like the opportunity to be in touch with the real language, to have like real exposure and practice. And personally, this was which really helped me once I had like learned all the basic structures, something that gave me more practice, extensive practice, and also something that let me communicate or start communicating in the real life with people by chatting and also by reading different kinds of texts, formal texts, and also listening to different TV shows and videos. I guess that in my personal opinion, these factors had like a particular influence on my second learning language process. Thank you very much.